Hello and welcome to A Course in Miracles 365. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and thank you so much for joining me here this afternoon at a different time today. And as you'll notice, the time is going to bounce around a little bit for a little while as we get this live stream up and running. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you've been following along here, we've been covering some basic fundamental topics that A Course in Miracles concerns itself with. Ultimately, well, it concerns itself with ultimate truth, with removing all of our blockages that we've interposed to the experience of who we really are. Now, as the Course puts it, it's removing all barriers, all blockages to the presence of love in our life. If you prefer to think of that as removing all barriers between ourselves and spirit and God, use that. It's all the same. And A Course removes these blockages. We remove them through applying the lessons, the teachings, and the practices of A Course in Miracles, which is a self-study course, and it is absolutely beautiful. Now, tomorrow we're going to be starting right here on this live stream, the workbook for students of the course, which is something that a lot of people start out with and think of when you think of A Course in Miracles. You think of a numerical 1 to 365 day sequence of practice items, of lessons, and you also think of the title of this live stream, which is daily. I'll be doing it for more than 365 days because this process of going through the workbook will take some time. There will be days, there will be lessons where we'll want to, and you may want to personally as well, spend more time with the idea. If you've never done this before, I invite you to join me. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to do starting tomorrow. Now, if you have your hands on a copy, whether it is an actual book copy or a digital copy, online resources of the workbook for students for A Course in Miracles, it's in the middle. It's the second component of the book. The first is the text, then the workbook for students follows that. So let's talk a little bit about what this is and what it's intended to do. Okay, the workbook has a numbered sequence of practices and procedures. You can call them lessons if that works for you. They are that very much, but it gives an idea a day, numbered 1 through 365. So, of course, in theory, one could start tomorrow, February 1st, and February 1st next year, end up finishing the workbook. It's suggested that you only do one lesson per day and not skip ahead, but do them in sequence, however long that may take you. Now, you may have tried this before and gotten maybe to lesson 23 and stopped, or you may have done the entire thing several times. I've done it a couple of times all the way through, and what I can tell you is that it's very transformative, with the caveat that it's transformative if you apply the teachings. Same with any spiritual path. If you do not practice what you learn, then ultimately nothing happens. What happens ultimately, you end up in the same spot saying, okay, I've tried this particular practice. I've tried this particular meditation. I've tried this particular form of manifestation, and nothing has changed for me. You can show up and practice these teachings, and they are designed for you to do just that. If you do that, shifts will most definitely begin to happen. And why? Why do we say that they will? Because if you go through all of these lessons, your perception will begin to change. That is the goal of a workbook for students. Now, can I guarantee that your perception will change? No, it's up to you. Read the disclaimer on here, right? We don't expect that anyone's going to go out and do anything out of sorts, right? Don't go sell your house, okay, unless you want to, right? Based on any advice that any of us give here on Enlightened World Network. Because if you put it into practice, things will change. They have changed for me. What has changed for me? I've become more patient, for starters. I have become more compassionate, more loving, more flexible, mentally, emotionally flexible, and more importantly than any of that, I think, in my mind, more forgiving. So there are two parts to the workbook. The first part of the workbook aims at getting us to shift our perception and change the way that we see things. We'll explain every day as we go through what those lessons are and what it's supposed to be doing. In other words, I will explain from a practical point of view, okay, what is the point of this exercise? Because some of them you will wonder that. You will wonder, why am I doing this again? What is this for? Why? Right? Some of them you will actively resist. And the introduction, by the way, that I recommend that you read says just that. The course does not expect you to agree with all the ideas. They don't expect you to welcome the ideas. And it does say, and I quote, some of them you will actively resist. What's going on if you resist them? Well, the ego, right, our separated sense of self feels threatened. Consider that a good thing. Consider that a good thing and welcome that and bring that onto the path, because it doesn't have to be all rainbows and unicorns. It's not like that. Spirituality, as you may know from your own experience, is not like that. It is not all sunshine and happiness. Why? Because your ego doesn't want to be exposed. Our dirt, use another word for dirt if you want to, starts with an S, doesn't want to come up. It's not comfortable to bring these things up. It's not comfortable to realize, oh, wow, I have been acting in a very harsh, maybe a hostile way, a defensive way for years, maybe decades. It's not pleasant for these things to come up, but we have to bring them up. Why? Because if we don't release them, then we'll go back to them. We'll go back to the old patterns of behavior. You might go back to a bad relationship. Why? Because you haven't applied the lessons. Each of these daily lessons is an idea. Then there is some text, some description, and there is a discussion of what you do, what the course would like you to do to put that into practice that day. Now, here's where we run into a lot of people's stories and their limiting beliefs about themselves. And I have led a group, I have led many workshops on a course before. And what happens is if somebody doesn't start on day one, then it's really easy. The ego wants you to get lazy. It's real easy to say, I shouldn't do that. Well, the group already started. Yeah, forget about it. I can't do that because the group has already begun. And well, I'll just wait. I'll wait until next year. Maybe they'll do it then. I don't recommend that you wait until next year to begin this process. If you just find out about this, because I've just begun this live stream, today's only day 7. If you find out about it, let's say in a week or 10 days, then I encourage you to go back, because I will be sure to number each day that we're working on lesson 1 of the workbook, lesson 2 of the workbook. Go back, watch that video, comment on that, reach out to me, because I'm happy to take questions and I'm happy to help. Now, I will be taking you through and I'll be sharing with you what the course, what the workbook has to say about the idea for the day, then my thoughts on how to put that into practice. And I will share with you some of my personal experiences from putting that into practice, because it's beautiful, because it's all about practice. It's all about showing up and putting teachings to use in your life. That is what this is about. It is about showing up and doing your best. So let's talk about, as the title of this live stream indicates, let's talk a little bit about self-forgiveness here, because this comes up with a course. People might get through, you might get through 7 or 8 lessons, or maybe you'll get through 75 lessons, and then life will come at you. Your work may require something of you, or you may just lose momentum for it. You might forget. I've seen too many people beat themselves up over that. Because we've been talking about forgiveness, I just want to say that one of the most important, perhaps you might make the argument that the most important person to forgive is yourself. So why is that so difficult for us? The workbook will bring that out for many of you. I know it will. I know it will. If you beat yourself up for not seeing things through, then this is going to come up for you. So I want to invite you to take a look, a real honest and a hard look at what's going on, and be easier on yourself. Forgive yourself. If you forget to practice a lesson on a given day, so what? Really, that's all right. Do your best. Some of these lessons ask you to repeat something periodically during the day, say 3, 4 times a day, maybe even every hour. Every lesson is very different. Everyone has a point that I'll explain. But if you don't do them all, if you start your day with the intention of doing exactly what the workbook says for you to do, and 5 o'clock in the afternoon rolls around and you haven't done anything, do something right then. Just do what you can as you remember to do it. Now, there are people that set alarms on their computer, on their watch. If that works for you, please do that. There've been plenty of days where I got through an entire day at the end of the day and realized I hadn't done the day's lesson at all. So what I tell myself at that point is, well, I'm not going to quit. I'll practice it right now, even if it's right before I go to bed, and even if it's not the optimal time. And if I forget, and there are a couple of days where I forgot the first time I was going through this, I just wasn't in the habit of doing it. So I forgot several days' lessons, and I just picked up where I left off. There's nothing that says that you have to go through it in 365 days. I won't even be going through it in 365 days. Why? Because there are some lessons that are so poignant and so hard hitting in a good way that they're worth a second day, that they're worth a second look. Now, I will be interviewing people. I will have guests joining me on this live stream. So those will be special appearances, and we'll pause the workbook where we are and pick it back up. It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine if you do that. And I always invite your questions and your comments. So let's check and see if there are any questions or comments right now here while I'm live. And Carol Ann says, yes, how appropriate I am on lesson 62 today. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. All right. Carol Ann Allen, thank you for commenting. Forgiveness is beautiful, isn't it? It's what we need, and we need to forgive ourselves. I know that's hard for a lot of people. It's maybe hard for you. You may be watching this thinking, okay, well, I can forgive everybody in my family. I can forgive an abusive ex-partner, my ex-spouse. I can forgive political personalities. Yeah, I can forgive world leaders that I don't agree with, but not myself. Why? Why is that so hard? Now, this is an opportunity. If you fall down on this, no problem. It's an opportunity to forgive yourself. And I have to stress the importance, the critical and foundational importance of that, of forgiving yourself. So the workbook aims at shifting our perception. In fact, the entire course aims to shift our perception of ourselves, of the world, of other people, the entire way we look at things. Now, you will get out of this exactly what you put into it. And if you don't catch me tomorrow on lesson 1, I invite you to start where you are when you pick this thread up. Again, every single day is going to be numbered. Lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, etc. The workbook itself recommends only 1 lesson a day because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And we can trust, and if we can't right now, we can learn to trust that Jesus, who dictated the course, knows what he's doing, doesn't he? If he says, do 1 lesson a day, it behooves us to do just that. 1 lesson a day. They're short. They're intended to be practiced in very short intervals. So I can tell you right now that no matter how busy you may find yourself, you do have time. You do have time for them. And I invite you very much to join me. All right. And so looking at the comments here, yes, Carol Ann, my wife, Cindy, is on lesson 62 today as well. All right. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. We'll talk a lot more about forgiveness, about what it means and what it means to practically apply that in your life. It is absolutely beautiful, and it will challenge you. It will challenge you. This whole thing will challenge you, but it's a beautiful journey. So, so worth it. And I invite you to take it with me. All right. And if you're catching this on the replay, feel free to leave comments. I will be checking this. If you missed the live stream, no problem. If you have questions, feel free to comment on here and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'm really looking forward to starting the workbook with all of you tomorrow. Have a beautiful evening, and I'll see you back again here tomorrow. Check the time at noon Eastern. All right, 9 Pacific, noon Eastern time tomorrow. I'll start the live stream at about 12:05, a few minutes after. Give people time to hop on, and I'll see you then with lesson 1. Have a great evening, everybody.